Hello, and welcome to another one of Leeds Helpful Tips videos. Thanks for tuning in today. Hopefully these videos help you in your day-to-day casework, as well as using our microscope systems. Thanks for tuning in. Following up from last week's live stream, this week's live stream is also going to be on our trace comparison microscope systems, specifically the LCT system behind me. And today's tutorial, or today's helpful tip, is going to be going over probably one of the biggest things that you can do for a polarizing light microscope, which is objective and stage centration. You know, it's kind of an art form, getting it just exactly perfect. And today's video and helpful tip hopefully will help you guys as you're using it in casework, getting things lined up, that kind of thing. Just a quick note before we begin, where you're going to see the biggest impact particularly is any type of qualitative measurement work you're doing with polarized light. And in that type of work, it's very important to have the stage, well, to have exactly lined up what you're looking at. And so that's what this is primarily made for, but it's also very helpful, the centration of the stage and the objective. It's very helpful when you're just doing general casework, you're rotating the stage and pole, and you don't want to have to go, you rotate the stage, and then have to go hunt down and find that hair or fiber or a piece of paint chip that you were looking at. So just a couple quick things before we begin. This is a live stream, so it is live. So if you guys have any questions, thoughts, comments, there is a live chat window on the right-hand side, and you can just go ahead and fill out a question, that type of thing. And then what I'll do is, as I see them, I'll answer them and respond to them. Additionally, if you have any thoughts or questions or want additional live stream content, you can always email us or email me at jkurth@leedsmicro.com, and we'll make sure we talk about it and speak to it for future live streams. Let's begin. So, microscope you see behind me is an LCT system, and let's go ahead and switch over so you can kind of see what I'm looking at. So this is a view through the software of our specimen in cross-pole. And the goal of objective and stage centration is for polarized light stages, so that way when you rotate them, it stays locked in and in focus. Well, not in focus, but it stays locked in, and as I rotate, you can see those interference colors change. I'm not having big movements from side to side. It's very easy, and I can just basically spin the whole stage and everything remains centered. And that's really that's the point of this whole exercise. So what I'm going to do, and what I recommend you do, is have a slide that has a lot of dust on it. And the reason is the dust is going to be very important as we try to get the stages centered, because you need little particles that you want to look at and then just watch as they move as you rotate the stage. So without further ado, what I'm going to do is swap out my neat trilobal fiber just to a hair sample that I have that has some good dust on it. And I'm also going to take us out of cross-pole. So let's go ahead and load this hair sample up, and then let's just bring the sample into focus. So you can see a lot of this little dust motes in my background, and that's really what we're going to be using today. So the first thing you want to have is you want to have a crosshair, either in the eyepiece or in the software. So what I'm going to do next is just kind of show you how you can get a crosshair in your Spot software, which is pretty easy. So what we're going to do is we're going to navigate over into the system, and we're going to assign a crosshair. And the easiest way to do that is the crosshair is located in the image acquisition settings, and then normally it'll load up on exposure. But if you click these little arrow buttons over and go to measure, you'll see that there's this live image reticle that you can select. So we're going to go ahead and select that by hitting apply. This is a reticle that I made. In the event that you don't already have a reticle loaded into your software, don't worry, making your reticle is very easy. All you need to do is just go to Setup, Reticles, and then this is where you're going to add a reticle. All these reticles are custom. It's almost unlimited what you can do here. So let's just click Add, we're going to use a blank image, and it's going to be uncalibrated. And it looks like nothing really is happening, but it's because the live image is over our reticle template. So I'm just going to move my live image to the side. And so this is the reticle template. So I'm just going to choose a simple crosshair, make sure my line thickness is at least 3 pixels, and then I can just place it anywhere. Getting it perfectly centered is not important, because what you'll do is you'll just hit this button down here that says Center on Image. That's all you need to do, and then you can name it. And now you'll see you have a couple reticles you can choose from. Any questions, please feel free to contact us, and we can guide you through that step. Now that we have a reticle, let's go ahead and use it on our sample. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Apply, and now we have a nice reticle to look at. So a quick note, on the LCT system, the LCT has two centerable objectives in its nose piece. And so when we do our setups, what we will often do, and I'll explain why in a moment, is we will place the 2 centerable objectives for the 20x and the 40x, the higher magnification objectives, with the 10x being centered on the stage. And the reason we do that is at 20x, basically at the higher the magnification objective you're working at, the more critical getting these centration alignments is. Because even if you're off a little bit, you'll have to do a much bigger movement, and it can be harder to get everything centered up if you don't have centering positions for those higher magnification objectives. It also comes, and I was talking to Kevin Boulay, who has a lot more experience than I do with these particular applications for geology. And really what it is oftentimes when you're doing qualitative work, you'll be using the highest numerical aperture lens you have. And that's usually a higher magnification lens. And so that's where you're also going to really want to make sure that those objectives are in their centerable positions. You can move them around as you like, but what we found that works really well is having the stage will center at the 10x on the stage itself, and then at the 20x and then at the 40x, what we're going to use are the included little thumb screws. Don't know how well you can see them, but they're 2 1.5 millimeter thumb screws, Allen wrenches, to actually center the objectives themselves. If you have your own toolkit, you can also use a lot nicer 1.5 millimeter Allen wrenches, but that's up to you. So first thing we're going to do is I'm going to make my system a little bit incorrect. And so that way you can kind of see, we can walk through it. So what I'm going to do is just slightly adjust my stage centration so it's slightly off. The objective is to get everything centered. So what I'm going to do is, while looking through the microscope, I'm going to go ahead and find a dust mote or a bubble or some feature to look at, and I'm going to line everything up on that. So in this case, I'm going to use this little dust mote. My crosshair is a little off, but you can kind of see that I'm looking kind of at this dust mote here. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rotate my stage, and I'm going to watch as the stage moves, and specifically as the dust mote moves. And you'll see that this stage, because it has our mechanical attachment, it's got some extra weight, so I need to focus as I'm rotating it. But you can kind of get an idea of how that dust mote is making a circle. So I'm just going to follow with my mouse while I do it. So as I rotate the stage, you'll see that it's kind of making, if you continue this motion, you'll see how it's kind of making a circle. Just right, that has a center point, maybe just right about here. And so the stage centration is a very simple step, or a very simple process in theory. The idea is to simply, using the stage centering screws, we're going to adjust the stage so the center of this imaginary circle, you can see this dust mote here, so as I spin it, it makes a circle. It kind of has a point here. We're going to adjust our centering stage screws to move this point of the stage into the middle of the crosshair. So here it goes, looking like that. Maybe about right about here. And so then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, move my stage. Quick note, it's the Etch-a-Sketch, and I maybe overuse that analogy for microscope parts. But the left side, I forget, but it has, right, it has a leftward diagonal motion. The right side has the opposite diagonal motion. And so the idea is by using these centering screws, we're going to try to get things, that's how we're going to move things around to try to get that crosshair in that imaginary circle point. Now, because I've moved everything, I'm going to redo and just reposition onto my dust mote and see how things look. So I'm pulling up another dust mote. The idea with this centration is you don't need to do it all the time. You really only need to do it once you see the centration is off. That's centered, and now what we're going to, or that's lined up on the crosshair. And now what we're going to do is we're going to rotate and kind of just see how that where that imaginary circle is going to be. So as I move it around, you'll see that it's, I think what we can safely say is we kind of have a circle that's coming down here, coming up, and it's just right about here, I would argue. And so then what we're going to do is go to our centering screws and just slightly adjust it to try to get it. And I could be doing this with the eyepieces, but actually this is pretty good off the monitor. Right there, and now we test it. And that's definitely better just looking at that, but let's go ahead and move it again. This is where you get to find out who the perfectionists are in your laboratory. And now we're going to just spin it. And that looks pretty good. Again, if you wanted to take it further, you absolutely could. But I think that's good enough for this purpose. The next step is to now do it at one of the higher magnification objectives. Our stage is centered, so now what we're going to do is switch over to our 20x. So, important note, now at the 20x and the 40x, we're going to be using these little silver knobs, or these little silver 1.5 Allen wrenches. Use these, not the stage. I guarantee you, at least if you're new to this, you're going to make that mistake once or twice. So all that effort you just spent on the 10x, you're going to have to then redo. So just remember, when you're working at the 20 and you're working at the 40x, in the centerable nose piece, you're going to only be using these on the objectives. I don't know if I can really show you very well. Maybe you can see it. Let's zoom in a little bit more. And I'm just going to go ahead and switch over here. See if we can get this bigger. These little centering screws, there's 2 screw holes here, and they simply slide into there in this configuration. The idea is that they come in at this angle into the nose piece. Technically, you could accidentally try to take it from both sides like this, where you're coming in from this angle, but this is the centering screw for the 40, not the 20. So just kind of remember, they come in and make kind of like this type of angle. All right, so now we're going to switch back over to our live view. So let's move our stage around. And again, we're going to do the same procedure. We're going to find a dust mote or a speck of bubble or something that is discernible. We're going to get our crosshair lined up on it. And I'm going to make a slight adjustment here on my stage because I don't think, yeah, like I said, my center of camera and my crosshair on this demo unit are just a skosh off. I think that'd be good enough for this. And now what we're going to do is we're going to rotate that stage. Zoom out a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the stage. We're going to rotate it and just see what happens with that dust mote. Where does that dust mote go? So what we can see here is as we're rotating it, it's making kind of this big circle, and you can kind of imagine where it's going to go with that. So it's going to go down, up, around, and probably basically would continue back. And I don't know if you can tell, but I'm not holding the stage, I'm holding this little extension handle. And that way I don't accidentally bump any of the alignment, specifically trying to on that dust mote. All right, so what we're going to do is bring it around. It seems like a pretty big circle. It's going down. So I'm going to say that the center is maybe about here. Yeah, that's where I would say it is. And so now, not using the centering screws in the back, but using the centering screws on the nose piece that I've inserted, what I'm going to do is try to get into the middle of that circle. Maybe I overshot a little bit, but we'll see. It's definitely better, and you can tell that when you get things locked up, it's just, it feels really good. It just sinks. All is right in the universe. I'm not saying all is right now, but we're getting close. We're going to do one more quick alignment. Going to do a slide adjustment on there. That's good enough. And then we're going to watch the rotation. And this is where you can be as critical as you'd like. You can kind of see, you see how it's going slightly out of focus. That's because this stage has some weight cantilevered out. And in fact, in this scenario, you actually might want to move to even a smaller dust mote, something like one of these very fine particles. And then again, we would just come back, use our centering screws, try to make some small tweaks. This is a very small. And then just keep working like that. And that's it. You just keep redoing that. You know, watch as that circle gets made. Move, and when you're working at the 10x, you move the stage. You put those centering screws in the back that are attached to the stage to try to realign it. And then when you're working at the 20 and when you're working at the 40, you use those little centering knobs, centering Allen wrenches that come with your system, and then just keep playing with that. Hopefully this helps. Let's see if there's any questions. Don't have any questions, so I think that's going to be it for today. Thanks for watching. Hopefully this helps with your centration of your stages and your objectives. If you have any questions, please feel free to contact us and give us ideas about what our next helpful tip should be. Thank you much.